We've put together a list of the 15 best Wonderkids from 15 years ago. We've done it with science by using Football Manager, which scouts like every freaking player in the world. And they assign these 15, well, actually it's 16, but 15 sounds better, players a potential ability range that could end up above Messi if it actually like hit. That's how good each of these players could have been according to the scouts at the time. We'll start with the 20-year-olds and we'll work our way all the way down to the 16-year-old who is supposed to be around Messi's level. But the first 20-year-old is from Villarreal, and that's Matias Fernandez. It's not going to be easy to find because that's a very common name. Now, right when this Football Manager game came out, he had just been signed for $8.7 million by Villarreal from Chilean club Colo Colo. The midfielder was coming off 20 goals in 30 appearances at the age of 19 in the top Chilean league. He made 3 seasons out of it at Villarreal and made about 71 appearances before he was surplus to requirements. He then moved to Sporting. He played 3 seasons in Lisbon, moved to Fiorentina for 4 years, played 4 years there, all as a regular player. The most goals he scored in a season at the top flight at any of these teams was 5. He then went to Milan for a year where he finally became a bit redundant, and then to Mexico over the last couple of years, with his career seemingly wrapping up in 2019. Look, the guy played in La Liga and Serie A, both for multiple seasons. He had a career that a lot of us would envy, but I think it's safe to say that he did fall somewhat short of the lofty expectations that scouts had for him. He got to play in the 2010 World Cup for Chile. He missed the 2014 World Cup with an injury, but did win the Copa America on the Chilean squad in 2015. He was also on the squad that won in 2016, but he also had to pull out because of injury, which highlights a reason that maybe he never took that final step. There were injuries. But honestly, he has an international trophy for his country, 74 caps, and played at the top level of the game for the better part of a decade. It was fine. Another 20-year-old on the list, a name that you haven't heard in a while, but maybe recognize, Fernando Gago of Real Madrid. Real Madrid signed this guy in December of 2006 for 20 million euros, and 6 years later, he was back in South America. Yikes. He was actually signed in the same window as Gonzalo Higuain and Marcelo. He was set up for success. The deep-lying midfielder made 91 appearances for Real Madrid over 5 seasons, but only twice cleared 20 appearances in a season, eventually ending up out on loan at Roma, where he actually did play 30 times. And Valencia scooped him up, and after 1 season, he was loaned to the Argentine Premier Division with Vélez, and then joined Boca Juniors for an illustrious 7-year stretch. And I say illustrious, but he only made at least 20 appearances 1 time. Next, we have Francisco Guillermo Ochoa from America. And you might recognize this name because on this list so far, he's probably the guy that's lived up to this the most for one specific competition. Francisco Guillermo Ochoa goes by a different name now, Memo Ochoa. And he has 129 caps for Mexico, including a whole host of stupidly good performances at the World Cup. And that's why I'm giving him credit, because his club career has actually been rather weird. See, this list is made from players that were rated this highly in 2007, and he stayed at America until 2011. So those 4 more years, he ended up making 239 appearances at his home club. He eventually moved to Ajaccio. Now, this pronunciation is likely incorrect, but Zealand's going to play his American card here because he doesn't know how to say anything correctly. The United States of America! Yeah! He was the regular starter for 3 years. He moved to Malaga in Spain, where he wasn't, then loaned to Granada in Spain, where he was, and then to the Belgian Pro League for a couple of years, where he was, again, the regular starter at Standard Liège, before finally, in 2019, making his way back to America in Mexico, where he is in his 4th season once again, being their regular goalkeeper, and he's set for yet another World Cup appearance with Mexico, where he is likely to be the starting goalkeeper. Some players are just inexorably tethered to their national team careers. Memo is one of them. The last 20-year-old is Falcao. In 2007, he wasn't the easiest find. Even at 20 years old, he was playing at River Plate in Argentina, and he didn't move to Europe until 2009. But the eventual superstar Colombian striker would go on to make 99 appearances for a Colombian national team that became resurgent in his time. He moved to Porto, then Atletico Madrid, then a prolific 6 years at Monaco, some of the best years Monaco's ever had. Even at Atletico Madrid, he bagged over 50 goals in 2 years. And after injuries torpedoed his first 2 years at Monaco, he scored at least 15 goals a year in his last 3. Things started to go downhill with a loan to Manchester United, where he only scored 4 goals in 26. Then he went to Chelsea. He only scored a goal. And finally to Turkey for 3 seasons at Galatasaray, whereby the third one he was redundant. But unlike everybody except for Memo on this list, he's still going. He went to Rayo Vallecano in the Liga, where he scored 6 goals in 22 matches last season. He's got some great winners medals. He's a 2-time Europa League champion, and he even won Ligue 1 with Monaco in 2017. He was once in the FIFA Pro Team of the Year in 2012. Dude had a banger career and by far the best 20-year-old on this list. But before we hit the 19-year-olds, we need to talk about something that's very important for protecting your Wonderkids, because this is valuable information when you can identify these Wonderkids, but you got to keep them safe from all those other people on the internet. And that's where our longtime sponsor NordVPN comes in. If you don't know what a VPN is, it's a virtual private network. It bounces your internet traffic off of some other point in the world to keep it safer, make it much harder to track, and it allows you to access the internet from different points in the world. Whether this is just out of interest, you want to see what their news feed looks like, or maybe a show is on Netflix over here but not over there, and so if you bounce your traffic from there, then it works. If you travel a lot and want to watch sports back home, NordVPN works for that too and can bounce your traffic back there so you can get local television. Not to mention, even though it sounds like a super difficult, intense internet thing to do, the UI is incredibly easy. You just click, drop down, click a country, and you're ready to rock and roll. Don't like that? Look around the map, click a dot, you're ready to roll. You get a 30-day money-back guarantee with the link down there, and 1 extra month free if you do end up liking it, which you will. I mean, it's very useful. So thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring the video. Check out the link. The 19-year-olds, please. The first one's gonna be funny. It's Manchester United's Gerard Piqué. Piqué actually made his debut for Manchester United back in 2004. He only went on to make 12 appearances until he was moved to Barcelona in 2008 for a fee of £5 million. If you're thinking, wait, hold on a minute. Barcelona was actually his boyhood club, but instead of signing a senior contract with Barcelona, he signed his first senior contract with United. I know, it's shocking. Manchester United used to actually do smart transfer business. Upon his return, he said, "I'm very happy to be back. I didn't think I'd be here again, but this is very good for me. Manchester United is a great club, and I enjoyed winning things. To play with world-class players has helped me, and now I want to continue this at Barcelona." And of course, you know the rest. Over 100 Spain caps and nearly 400 appearances for some of the best teams that have ever played the game. Other than losing Shakira, pretty much everything has gone right for Gerard Piqué, and this was a very good rating by the scouts back in 2007. Perhaps a slightly different story than the next 19-year-old from Independiente, Oscar Ustari. Now, Oscar Ustari is an Argentinian goalkeeper, and the fact that I have to explain that to you is probably not a good sign. He had a bit of a weird story. He joined Independiente's youth system at 14, and then the 2 goalkeepers ahead of him just died. But then, like, immediately after that, he started suffering injuries. He's supposed to be in the Copa America squad in 2007, but he ended up getting hurt. He then moved to Getafe for 5 years, but due to injuries and poor form, as they put it, he just didn't play. And then he fizzled out. He went to Sunderland for a year, and that was kind of it. He's been in Argentina and bouncing around in South America since 2014. 2 Argentina appearances in his whole career. But the other 19-year-olds managed to be much more relevant. First, another Mexican, Andres Guardado, who at the time was playing for Atlas. He's 3 appearances away from breaking Claudio Suarez's all-time appearance record for Mexico at 177. He went to Deportivo La Coruña for over $5 million in 2007. Spent a lot of time there before moving to Valencia for free. Then he bounced to PSV and then back into the Spanish leagues with Real Betis. That's actually where he still is now. But as he's settled into the old man midfield role now, he can look back fondly on 137 appearances and 23 goals with a prime-time Deportivo La Coruña side. Overall, very successful career, which is not something we can say about the next player, Hatem Ben Arfa. Or is it? I feel like almost everyone knows about Hatem Ben Arfa, as he seems to be the poster boy for having a bunch of talent and not wanting to or knowing how to use it appropriately. He scored one of the best goals you really may ever see in a magic run from behind the midfield line that I feel like everybody sees on highlight compilations. But the guy never was able to do it on a massive stage. He went from Lyon to Marseille to Newcastle to Nice, with his most successful spell being Newcastle over the long haul. 72 appearances, 12 goals, but one season at Nice, he played 34 times and scored 17 goals. I would point to that is the best sign of what he was capable of. The biggest club he ever played for was PSG. but he only got to play for one season, made 23 appearances, and he didn't score. As for the last 4 years, he's had a different club every year. Rennes, Real Valladolid, Bordeaux, Lille. The guy was clearly an amazing talent. It just didn't work out. But now for the 18-year-olds that could have been better than Messi, and we start with Messi's friend, essentially, Sergio Aguero. I mean, do I need to say anything except for Aguero? Seriously, hope medically he's doing well now, and an amazing career, an amazing player. This prediction was definitely right. And so was another player who is 18 on this list, Gonzalo Higuain. Now, his star might not have shone quite as bright, but we're talking about somebody that got to participate in a ton of international tournaments with Argentina. I'm talking about somebody that scored over 100 goals for Real Madrid, over 100 goals in Serie A with Napoli and Juventus, and over 30 goals for Argentina. Over the course of that time, he made 75 appearances. Sure, Gonzalo Higuain was never the best striker in the world, but he was always one of the best strikers in the world when he was in his heyday, and I could appreciate him for that, and I'm going to go ahead and give this the Zealand star of approval. Yeah, they basically got his potential right. He ended up being really good. And there was one other 18-year-old that did not quite reach those heights. Anderson was at Porto when this list was made. He signed there for 7 million the year before, 7 million euros to be exact. The year after that, though, he moved to Manchester United for an undisclosed fee, and a career that started with issues with work permits fizzled into a very forgettable career that looked like this. Alone to Fiorentina did little to rehabilitate his career, but he did get to move to Inter, where he had, a couple of successful seasons and made 50 appearances. That was it. The Brazilian made 8 appearances in the midfield for Brazil and just kind of became an afterthought, never realizing the potential he was assigned. We're finally down to the final 5, the brightest young wonder kids there were 15 years ago, and one of them is just 16. But for the 17-year-olds, we start with Theo Walcott. He joined Arsenal for £5 million in 2006. In his career, despite the fact that it was good, you always felt like it could have been a lot better. He's still at Southampton now. He's still technically in the Premier League, but he's only made 9 appearances for them so far. He might be best remembered for being England's youngest ever senior player. It's 17 years, 75 days. He was at Arsenal 15 years ago, and he went on to make 270 appearances, score 65 goals. Injuries just nagged at him a little bit, and he ended up with 47 England appearances, last making the team in 2016. A career that a lot of us could dream of, but for England's ever younger player at the time he took the field in 2006, he came up a bit short. Perhaps not as short as our next 17-year-old, Carlos Vela, the Mexican forward, because he was on Arsenal at the same time. He only made 29 appearances and scored 3 goals at Arsenal over 7 seasons there. He did loans, of course. He went to Celta Vigo, Salamanca, he went to Osasuna, West Brom, Real Sociedad. At Salamanca, Osasuna, and Real Sociedad, he showed quality. He played in over 30 matches. At Sociedad, he scored 12 goals, and then that's what prompted them to sign him. And he ended up making 184 appearances and scoring 54 goals in 6 years with Real Sociedad. See, that's the interesting thing about Vela, is that in English circles, he's considered a massive flop because at Arsenal, he just didn't do anything. Real Sociedad is a good club in La Liga, and he was a good player there for a long time. And trust me, as somebody that spends a lot of time in CONCACAF, he has torched the United States more than once. 72 appearances and 19 goals for the Mexican national team, and a very successful spell at LAFC that has capped his career. I don't want to write off Carlos Vela as a complete lemon, but Walcott definitely had a better career. But I'm still jealous of Carlos Vela's, and he's still definitely been pretty good. Nowhere near close enough to living up to the potential that these guys had and were assigned by scouts at the time, right? But very good. And Mexico was cooking at this time because there's another Mexican player on this list, 17-year-old Giovanni Dos Santos. He was at Barcelona at the time and ended up getting into the Barcelona first team to the tune of 28 appearances the year after he was named one of the best wonder kids in the world by Football Manager. His problem is he then moved to Tottenham, which turned into loans to Ipswich, Galatasaray, and Racing Santander, none of which he made more than 16 appearances at. He turned to Spain to rehabilitate his career. He went to Mallorca and then to Villarreal, where he ended up making 57 appearances and scoring 12 goals, including 11 in his first season. But by this time, that wonder kid shine had really been taken off of him. That Barcelona youth vim and vigor of the 17-year-old was gone. And he went to LA Galaxy and was a prolific MLS player for 4 years before moving to the Mexican League after falling out of favor in LA. He plays with Memo Ochoa at America now. That's a nice, beautiful bow. But all these guys have made a home in the Mexican national team, though, and that counts for something. 107 appearances and 19 goals. But we've been burying the ace in the hole of the 17-year-olds because the guy that had the weirdest and most, I would say, irrelevant career was Aaron Ñíguez, a Spanish winger at Valencia 15 years ago. The problem is he never made a senior appearance for Valencia. I mean, all you have to do is look at his senior career block on Wikipedia to know that this guy is just not out of a fun time. He's not had a fun time. He never had a chance to sit somewhere and develop. He did no less than 5 loans. 5 over the 5 years after he was named to be this amazing wonder kid. And he's still playing. I mean, he's made a career as a professional player, but Ñíguez just fizzled. Even went to the Malaysian Super League in 2019. I don't know. He last played in the 3rd tier of Spain in 2021. But now, the name you've all been waiting for. The final name on this list and the only under 17 player to be given Messi potential ability in Football Manager 15 years ago, Alexander Pato. And if you think you knew that, what you might not know is that this was actually the first wonder kid I was introduced to. I had my friend running in with FIFA 09 talking about Alexander Pato's going to be the next Messi. And this was 2 years before that, when he was 16 years old. And it's another story you might be familiar of because it's one that unfortunately we are familiar with. It's the Brazilian that comes to Europe perhaps too early. He showed up at AC Milan in 2007 and made 117 appearances, scoring 51 goals over 6 years, but then bounced back to Corinthians in Brazil. But 2011 to 2013 on his Wikipedia page is quite literally just titled injuries. And you can see what those injuries did to him because, to be perfectly honest, up until 2009, it looked like the scouts were right and that Alexander Pato is going to be a fantastic player for many years to come. 36 matches, 15 goals is a very good season. But then there it goes. He made a brief return to Europe with a quick loan to Chelsea and then a half-season move to Villarreal before cashing out and moving to China in the January window of 2017. Then back to Brazil, and now he's actually in MLS and had a pretty good season with Orlando City. So you have to respect somebody that is just kind of founded in spurts at a competitive level over the course of their career. Assuming his Brazil national team days are over, which I have to assume, he made 27 appearances and scored 10 goals, and instead of being a long-term superstar, was a brilliant flash in the pan. It'd be harsh to say that the scouts got this one wrong because he showed up at a high level at a young age and actually played really well. He just couldn't maintain it physically or perhaps mentally. And that's a very difficult and underrated thing to have to do. That's why we got to appreciate the actual Messi, the Ronaldo, and everybody else that keeps playing until they're 45 years old. I see you, Zlatan. But if you enjoyed this list, let me know. If you want to see more of them, of course, hit me up down in the comments. We've done one like this before, Wonder Kids that were more recent than the ones we're talking about. And if you want to watch that video, it is right here. If you want to see those future videos, you know what to do. Subscribe, hit the bell. You've YouTubed. I got you.